welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and I'm the host Flux. This week I am joined by Eliminator.
Hello.
And Nineball.
Hey, everybody.
And this podcast topic was your idea, Nineball. Why don't you fill us in on what we were going to be discussing?
On today's podcast, I just wanted to kind of go and talk about the Judge Hype preview that he had done, where he had basically gave a very in-detailed commentary on the entire playthrough of the demo and the atmosphere and the story that we got from that.
Yeah, so we're talking about that and also basically just how the story and the quests are structured in Diablo 3 and how they are in the final game compared to how they've been in the demos. The descriptions of the beta demo, I keep wanting to call it a demo. It is actually the beta. It's the first, they played like the first third of Act 1. And it was very much, you do this quest, you do this quest. You pretty much have to do full clears of the small areas to finish the quests. You have to go through the dungeon to get down to stuff. It's much less free-form and open than even the Diablo 2 starting place was. Which actually you could wander around quite a bit at the start of Diablo 2. I mean, if you think about it, how big the open areas were.
Yeah, considering, the second area that you go into, the Cold Plains, is just huge if you actually go through to explore everything about it.
I think that's a modern day gaming really convention to not just throw the person out into the wild. Nowadays they want to try to guide you a little bit more.
Especially in Diablo 3.
Actually, you know what though? It's not just Diablo. It's most games nowadays. So everybody that probably complains about it, I don't know, maybe they just don't play enough modern games. They're always just playing Diablo 2 on.
How would you guys compare the opening area of World of Warcraft with a brand new character? Is it very much, point A, point B, point C until you get to level 10 or something? Or?
Yeah, very, very much so. You are led by the nose.
It's even more than that. It's even more past level 10. It's really, now it's practically till you get to level 85. Are you basically led by the nose all the way there?
Yeah, and you used to be able to go out and explore and pick up, quests from different hubs and, do it at your leisure in whatever sequence that you want nowadays. And WoW, it's you can only pick up a few quests at a time, and it's literally you're led around, and it's like you have to go here and do this before you can do anything else. And it's just very, very linear.
But I mean, they do give you choices in that fact that you can go to other locations, like on the other continent, and do the earlier quests like that. But yeah, if you're on the same continent, you're basically led by the nose to go from zone to zone.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with a change of scenery. Any zone that you go to is the same exact way. It's just they have a path set out for you that you have to follow. You can't skip ahead at any point in time.
And it seems like that's what Diablo 3 is doing, at least in the start of Act 1. So, for better or for worse, that's what we've got.
I guess it really depends on how much that game itself actually engages you. If you feel like you're being led around, then of course that's going to detract from the gameplay. If you're going through and playing linear, but you're hanging on the edge there, it's like, well, what's next? Where do I have to go? What do I have to do? What's going to be waiting for me on the other side type thing? Then you don't really feel as if you're being led on.
And obviously you guys have been playing World of Warcraft for a long time. Can you imagine if you were a noob right now? Would you think it was better now? I mean, obviously you're being controlled, but is that would you be like, oh, this is good, I know what to do, I'm not having to worry about stuff? Or do you feel like it's just turning you kind of a mindless robot?
I think for people that are brand new to it, probably don't even notice how it's doing it really as much as people that have been playing it for a while and know what it was like at first. That you could just walk around and pick up a quest here, pick up a quest there. Some quests you never even got because you didn't even know they were out there. You had to just kind of stumble across it. So I mean, for old players, you kind of realize it or you see it, but the new players don't even probably realize it.
Yeah, I would probably have to say, comparing that to first time I started leveling up a character, God knows how many years ago, it was frustrating at times because it was just, it's like, you have to deliver this package to so-and-so. Where the hell is he? Type thing. It's just you had no idea where it was you were going or what you were doing. Now at least it does provide an ample path to give you. So for someone that's brand new, especially if this is the first time playing a game of that genre, I think it would be a definite improvement.
But it's going to be interesting with Diablo 3 because we're all jumping into it, more or less ignorant of the plot and the quest and the functions. And I'm sure our first few playthroughs will be like, oh, this is awesome. Look at all these, these different quests, and I know what to do now, and it's very easy to follow along.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe after a few years, we'll be like, oh god, I hate starting a character. You got to go, it's just exactly what you're doing next at every stage. It might get very tedious.
Yeah, especially depending, with Diablo 2, it was more or less the same thing, unless you had somebody that could rush you through content, where you could, skip a whole bunch of the quests in between. It's like you could just, run straight to Andariel, kill her, and now you're in Act 2. Wonder how much of the actual main storyline quests are skippable.
Where I think Diablo 3 is going to benefit, though, is the fact that those random locations might have random quests and stuff like that. So you may want to, if they do it right, incentivize? Whatever. Yeah.
Incentivize.
Yes, that word. I couldn't pull it out for some reason.
That's what she said.
They'll give you a reason why to go and search for those locations and those random events.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like any of those random things are in the early going of Diablo 3, at least from the descriptions we've heard thus far. But that's only, the first hour of game. Obviously, it'll open up at some point. They obviously want to make it easy for noobs to get through it at the start.
He did mention a couple of the little randomized quests that he had encountered along the way.
One of the interesting things that Diablo 3 does is it starts you off right in the battle. You fight zombies before you ever get to town or talk to an NPC, or, very much different. Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, you're started off right in town, and you get lots of lectures before you get to kill anything. And that, interestingly, that's how it was in the 2008 and 2009 BlizzCon demos as well. You started off in a safe area and talked to an NPC and went out to fight. But then last year's BlizzCon demo, they just dumped you into this dungeon, and you took 10 steps forward, and you were fighting, Thorned Hulks and stuff. You start off, and you run through a little bit of forest wilderness, and then you find lots of really slow-motion, punching bag, experience pot zombies. And once you kill a number of them, you get to enter Tristram, and you talk to Captain Rumfeld. So what do you guys think about just throwing people into the action? I mean, imagine those are like the slowest zombies in the history of zombitude. It's probably almost impossible to die there.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably have like a 10-second swing timer on their attack.
So I wonder where the first checkpoint is. I mean, do you start at a checkpoint, and in case you're, incompetent enough, or you just go AFK for 5 minutes and you get killed? Opening zombies are very easy, and you talk to Captain Rumfeld, who was actually in the 2008 demo and had some interesting dialogues that were differentiated for the three classes present in the game at that point. His talk was the basic plot intro. The meteors fall into the cathedral. There's zombies everywhere. You have to go save us.
We have an army under our control, but we're incapable of doing anything. We're going to send the one guy in there by himself.
And what we get in Diablo 3 is he just talks to you briefly and says, hi, welcome to town. You're pretty strong for a random follower. Go look around. And then you wander up in the town, and Judge Hype mentions Brother Malachi, the healer. Do we need a healer? I guess we need a healer. Much like Pepin in Diablo 1, it sounds like he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other townspeople with miscellaneous dialogues, and as we know, that you don't have to actually stop and talk to anybody. You can just click on them once and then walk away, and they keep talking in your ear.
That's one of the things I liked about Diablo 2 is the fact that you could talk to each person and get a different line of dialogue every time you started a new quest and stuff like that.
Depending upon your progress in the quest, their dialogue would also change.
Yeah, it's like every time you leave and come back to town, I think it was twice, you had two sets of dialogue and then a third for the third dialogue when you actually completed the quest.
And random gossips.
Yes, and random gossips, which
and
were
every
really
one of those,
that random.
Every one of those dialogues is in the diablo2.diablowiki.net/NPCs. You can see every one of their dialogues when they appear. Many of which I'd never heard. There's these weird situations. You have to talk to them like the third time back in town after you've done half a quest or something.
Yeah, it's like, after you, I think there was like one when you actually discovered the altar of the sun and like the Viper Temple, but you hadn't actually destroyed it and gotten the amulet yet. One of the people in town said something special or something. I was actually going through that a couple months ago and was surprised at how many different levels of dialogue there were in Act 2 that I had just completely missed over the years.
Yeah, as many million times as you played it, you just zoom through it after a while, and you don't get all those weird nuances.
Whenever I go back to the game, I try my best to try to listen to those things, but then halfway through it, I usually forget. And I'm like, oh damn, I forgot to go back.
And then after those first conversations, you venture to the location that we've heard called the Inn of the Slaughtered Calf. aka McDonald's. Inside this bar, you meet Leah, who is the town drunk and whore, apparently. And there's spoiler time. Spoiler. Whose daughter is she?
Adria.
There you go.
Adria was the witch in Diablo 1, the NPC merchant. And we'd seen concept art of her for Diablo 3, but didn't know if she would be returning. And apparently she's not seen at this point in Act 1. We don't know if she actually does return. I would assume we'll probably find her later on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like with Leah only being like 8 years old or something like that. That means that she survived the raising of Tristram back in Diablo 2.
And survived the raising by Cain, apparently, because now he's her adopted... They said she's his adopted niece. Can you have an adopted niece? Doesn't adoption equal mother or father? I don't think you can have an adopted niece.
Well, nah, I guess you can do it as long as you are acting as the parent, I should say. You can...
Well, you know how you always have that, friend of the family that, you refer to as uncle or aunt or whatever?
And if someone asked, does this mean that Cain and Adria were getting it on back in the day? Is Cain her actual father? And apparently not. I mean, Bashiak said no in a forum post, so then it must be true. But we're all very happy not to think about Cain having sex, I'm pretty sure. It's not something I need to have in my mind. Methuselah-esque creature.
Stay a while and listen in bed.
God, stay a while on something. So... in that tavern, apparently all the townspeople then go into zombie mode, and you and Leah get to chop them up. Yeah, you meet the bartender there. Bron sells ID scrolls and healing potions, which is what I like to think of bartenders as selling in the real world, actually. and then one of the next quests, you get to go visit the House of Cain, which sounds like a good name for a fraternity, actually. But apparently it's Cain's house, and you find books and burning candles and stuff, which seems like a terrible fire hazard. And you also find Cain's journal, which you can read and take with you, because, like every game, your hero is a goddamn dirty thief with no regard for anyone else's personal property.
It's true.
Maybe you get to smash open some furniture in his house, too, to see if there's different parts in them. And pretty soon they send you to the cathedral, where you get to rescue Cain once again. Now, this actually would be a quest that I would like to pass up if possible. Can we just watch Cain die instead?
I'm tired of saving you, Cain. That wasn't in any of the demos, right? Any of the previous demos of you saving Cain?
No, he's not been in any of the demos at all, actually, which has been one of the best things about BlizzCon. And then back in town, you get to access a second part of the area, which in the grand tradition of Diablo games, anything blocked by more than a knee-high obstacle is therefore entirely unreachable. You couldn't walk around the back of the building. If there's a wagon in the way. Oh, guess I can't get through here.
That's because people in Diablo can't bend their knees.
And then past that, you get to meet the blacksmith and get his quest, and then you get your herodic dumpster. Then apparently you get a little bit more out of town. You go explore some dungeons, a cemetery kind of place, much like Bloodraven quest, it was said. And the Jar of Souls, which is, I think, one of the first places that they really mix up the gameplay. Where, as we know in Diablo 2, you're pretty much always advancing and killing stuff, and you can always retreat if you need to. And it's always you moving towards the monsters. And one of the things they've talked about in Diablo 3 is they want to change up a lot of the gameplay mechanics and give places where you have to defend locations. And we've had a few of those in the BlizzCon demos, but in a very limited sense, Nineball?
Yeah, you had like the one where you had to escort the guy to find the chest in the 2008 demo that his colleagues had left behind.
And there were a couple of things in the desert in 2009 where you had to fight off a big swarm of, what were they called? Lakuni, the cat people.
Yeah, I never found any of the random encounters when I played through it in 2009. I played through it a couple times, and all I found was just the dungeons. I didn't actually get any of the little random quests out in the world.
But there were random quests out in the world in that demo?
The problem, because the demo was so huge that you couldn't really get through it all in the time allotted to you. But I was in the press room that year, and I was able to play for like an hour and a half straight with a monk and did every inch of the demo. Actually, that with all the characters, but, let's not go there. But with the monk especially, I really did every little bit of it. And I definitely got, some quests like 2 times and some like 3 times and some just once in the whole huge area. And one of them was another little defendant area spot. You kind of got into this little broken down, like the ruins of a house with like 3 entrances. And you had to defend it from an onslaught of fallen. And these just huge hordes of fallen just came running up out of nowhere and all came streaming into the doorways like If they were like salmon going up river, basically.
They get hacked down by the bear that is you.
Yeah, and it was fun just to stand there and chop them all up, and that's kind of what this Jar of Souls looks like. You're on this little high point in the cemetery in kind of a dungeon, and suddenly you click on this thing, and there's like a million skeletons, and you've got to hold them off for 60 seconds. And if you do so, you get a special reward. Plus, you get the fun of killing a million skeletons.
I've noticed that a lot about the demos and the videos that they've shown of monsters that kind of crawl up from the sides of walls or around the terrain or whatever to attack you. They don't just like run off from the side of the screen.
Yeah, especially we saw that in the last gameplay video from BlizzCon last year when you fought the Warden. All those ghouls came scaling up the sides of the area.
Like they're all climbing up the platforms, and also like in the B-roll demo video that we had gotten, where you have the undead, which are just constantly rising up out of the ground as you walk through and trigger them.
Yeah, these aren't, people who haven't played it might be wondering what the point of these are. These are not necessarily meant to be difficult. A lot of them are just really fun. It's like here's a bunch of really, just a bunch of experienced bags on 2 legs, or possibly 4 legs, given that it's Diablo, or possibly 3 legs. Who knows? There's a lot of weird stuff. But it's not meant to, it doesn't mean your life is in danger, you're going to have to really fight for it. This just might mean, here's a chance to get a really big kill spree bonus, because there's lots of really easy things coming at you at once.
You get that god complex of every time you beat something down, you get an instant gratification that you just won something.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to mention with like the little minor quests and things like that, is just giving you little tiny objectives that you can accomplish as you're going through the main storyline itself. Makes you feel as if you're doing something right, and makes you feel powerful. Going back to all the like free XP creatures that are running around in the beginning of the game, it allows you the opportunity to get used to your spells, try out the different abilities, considering you only have the 2 active skill slots at that point, 3 skills in the beginning, and then again at level 3 and level 6 you get like 6 more skills. So you've got a lot that you have to go through and test out in at the beginning, and you don't want to actually be fighting for your life while trying to find out, well, what's the difference between Magic Missile and Arcane Orb.
We've got a whole thing on skills and free specs coming up later on in the podcast, so we'll get back to that topic in more detail. It sounds like the biggest area in the demo is after you do some of these opening stuff, then you finally get the quest to find Leoric's crown. And there is a 4-level dungeon that you work your way down through. And then level 5 is Leoric, and it's kind of a set area. But it sounds like those 4 levels are a little more freestyle stuff. I mean, technically all you have to do is find his crown and then take that with you to the bottom. So really you could just look for the stairs, I guess. But there's also all kinds of little escort missions and stuff in there, and at some point you find the Templar as well in that area and rescue him. I'm guessing they make it so you can't not find him.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, given what they were saying, that all the followers are part of the main storyline, is I don't think that you'll be able to skip it. He's probably standing in front of the stairs, won't let you pass until you talk to him.
Yeah, he's on some torture device apparently, and you can, obviously, as all locks and knots are open in Diablo 3 with a single click, that's probably not real hard to get him loose. Apparently it's kind of a cool thing in that you save him and you don't really know that he's anyone special at the time. It's just it could just be another escort quest. And then after you've saved him, fairly soon, you find a big special glowing chest. And when you click that, it pops like all of his gear. And then he puts on his equipment and gives you some background information about, what he is and why he's a Templar and how he's going to save the world, and you have to help him and stuff.
I wonder if that's going to be randomized at all. If he's going to be, instead of a torture rack, maybe he's locked up in a cell, or maybe he's in some other device trapped,
A wide variety of torture devices for him. You're like, okay, I got the Iron Maiden again. Awesome.
That way people don't always, whenever they see it, be like, oh, there's the Templar. Maybe they might switch it up on them, try to keep it fresh and new.
And the Templar, as we were discussing earlier, only has equipment, weapon and shield spots and jewelry. He does not wear equipment, no armor, no helmets, etc. And in theory, his appearance changes over the game. I'm guessing as he levels up, he looks cooler and heavier armor and such. I think we've seen actual different looks on them in the screenshots to date, have we not?
Yeah. Some in the B-roll.
When they first announced the followers, they had the different screenshots of him as his gear increases. I think you actually, in the followers video, if you watch it, the gear of the character on like the paper doll progresses.
Yeah, I wonder if they have distinct level up. I mean, obviously they do level up because their skills are in every fifth level. There's another tier of skills available. So it's maybe at each tier they poof and they've got better armor suddenly. But it is useful to equip them because otherwise they're weak and they can die. The Templar isn't really around until you're well into the Skeleton King quest, so you only get a few levels of him, if even that many, a few dungeon levels of him in this demo in the start of Act 1.
Where do you think that the Warden, the last year's BlizzCon demo, would fit in? Do you think it's going to be after this?
Well, since he wasn't in it, yeah, gotta assume so.
Unless where does the Butcher fit in?
Or where does Butcher fit in?
Yeah, it seems like the Skeleton King is pretty early on. Like a third of the way through the act, or even less than that. It's weird because we saw those huge Skeleton King dungeons last year. I mean, they were related to the Skeleton King anyway.
Yeah, that's.
And I kind of assumed you get those before you got to the Skeleton King.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially given the area with the Warden, you could go through and see the little cutscene, with Leoric and his wife and the Archbishop Lazarus.
So apparently, after you kill the Skeleton King, then you get more of the story. Maybe right after that, you go into the Queen Alyssa's skeletal dungeon place, and you get that little cinematic. It seems kind of a weird order for the plot to come out.
Yeah, you would figure that Leoric would be the last person you fight at the end of that, instead of the first person you fight at the beginning.
Yeah, I doubt that they created content, especially just for the demo, that's never going to be seen in the actual game.
I mean, they've said that this is literally the start of the game in Act 1. It doesn't sound like they skipped a bunch of stuff. I guess it just is after it, and it'll make sense when we play it, maybe. Yeah,
because they said this is supposed to be like about the first third of the game, and the reason why they cut it here was because there's major story spoilers immediately after it.
The story spoilers at BlizzCon last year, but obviously there's a different story. I guess we must find out about what the meteor was, and maybe you find out that it was Tyrael or whatever the rumors are.
That's one thing that was funny about this beta, was the fact that, or at least the beta demo that they played, was you could piece together most of these story elements from everything that we've found out in the past already. So nothing really was new to anyone who has been paying attention to this.
Except for maybe Adria, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some of them also it's little hard to make the connections without actually knowing that they're supposed to be connected.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, well, obviously we knew about the Skeleton King, and then and 2 years later all the torture devices and things like that, and we wouldn't, I guess, not really.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah. I just think it's like you said, the first demo that you guys ever played at the first BlizzCon that it was there at, you actually played basically a very similar build to what the beta build is in terms of content.
Yeah, you certainly fought Leoric in it.
Yeah.
And speaking of...
It's not related at all.
That's what the beta demo ends with, is the battle with Leoric, and he's the first kind of, obviously he's not an act boss or anything, but it's a multi-stage battle, and he can continue to summon new skeletons up during it. What I was told that I hadn't realized by another person I talked to about it is actually the teleport skill now. And so constantly during the battle, Leoric is teleporting all over the place. The guy who described it for me was doing it with a demon hunter, and he said, whenever he'd get a good angle, the Templar would be tanking on Leoric, and he was shooting him, and suddenly Leoric would waver and then appear right next to him, which seems a pretty handy tactic to screw with ranged attackers. He did not teleport in the 2008 demo that I ever saw anyway. He just stood there.
No, yeah, he just stood there and, kind of slowly walked around as you ran away from him without having too much issues.
Yeah, the guy I talked to about this, who I'm hopefully recording a podcast with again this week, he got deleted last time by my computer failings, but he said that his main game was with the Demon Hunter, and it was really hard, according to him, doing the Leoric and all of his huge hordes of skeletons. And the guy didn't sound like he really was using crowd control skills. I mean, like Entangling Arrow, I found just to be an enormously useful debuff in BlizzCon last year.
It looked like it.
And it really slows down the attackers and the hordes, and you can use that and alternate your skills. And if you don't use that, I don't think you really have any other low-level debuffs with a Demon Hunter.
Is like the Spike Trap that early, or was it later?
I haven't actually read the list of skills.
Out of all the classes that I had played last year, that was the strongest single-point talent that I could have gotten out of like any of the classes that I played.
But that wasn't a debuff. It was just a point of damage trap thing, right?
Yeah, but it's like if you did the entangling shot and got them moving slowly, like you tacked it Yeah, you tacked it like one of the cultist, demons that they summon. You tack that to like one of the zombies, and they get slowed down significantly. You drop it, and they just sit there and get ground up like chuck beef.
Go
The
ahead, Lim.
skills that
Tell us how you
Judge
really feel.
Judge Hype put up, some of them seemed like there wasn't the complete list, because there were some skills that we know about that he didn't have on the list. Like there was one.
The Witch Doctor's fire
Yeah.
skull.
Yeah, the Witch Doctor's Firebomb, right? That's what it's called?
Yeah, he missed that and Poison Dart. We actually have the complete list now. I have ninja photos of every interface screen.
Okay. So I was
And
wondering about that.
Mr. Fry has updated everything in the wiki.
I was wondering, like, because I would take for granted our
You can say ours.
okay our wiki site for all the accuracy of what skills and everything that were there, and then you look at the Judge Hype one, and I was like, well, should I even take this as face value, or should I wait until I see it on the wiki to say that it's real or not?
So anyway, this guy who talked to me about the Demon Hunter battle, his funny anecdote about the Templar was that he died like 4 times during the battle. And he didn't really have the crowd control skills he needed to survive very effectively. But so he was just running for his ass, and then the Templar would tank the Skeleton King, and he'd get a bunch of shots in on the Skeleton King, and this huge crowd of zombies, of skeletons would crowd around the Templar. But he kept dying, and then I asked the guy, so what kind of equipment did you have in your Templar? And he was like, what?
I could equip him?
Yeah, which would obviously be kind of a help. And you can't put armor on them, but you can certainly put on a shield, and you can put on jewelry, which would obviously add to their stats.
Yeah, a weapon. If he didn't start with a weapon, actually allow him to kill things.
Yeah, so obviously the Templar is a useful assistant, and he's going to help you, and he's going to tank if you're playing a ranged attacker. But you can't just count on his natural talents. You need to give him some gear.
God, I hope Blizzard wasn't watching when he was playing that. Otherwise, they'll dumb it down even further.
Yeah,
Sounds too complicated.
Yeah, the first level up, he gets 3 stones of Jordan on him or something, and he's like, well, he's set now. So after you kill the Skeleton King, we could see in the demo pictures, the text on the screen says, click for the secret passageway underneath the throne, something like that. But of course, the people couldn't do that in the demo, in the beta, because that was the end of the beta demo. But in the full game, we'll get to do lots more, and perhaps, as we were just saying earlier, that's when you'll get more. Apparently, there's more levels related to the Skeleton King after that, and you get to meet his lovely ghostly wife.
Yeah, you get the staff. You have to go, kill the warden, the gardener after that. The valet,
the butler, with the chamber pot in the conservatory. One other topic of relation to this. Any other story or quest points you guys wanted to bring up, by the way, before we move on?
I guess the only other thing that I would like to say is just like looking through all the screenshots and actually going and reading his entire playthrough description. And if you go and look at the screenshots that he has, smattered around to give you an idea of like where he is and what he's doing, it feels a lot like a Diablo game, because I mean it's a
Let's
dark.
hope so.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the biggest things that people constantly are always complaining about, that this doesn't sound like a Diablo game anymore. It's like this is just something else with a Diablo name on it. But if you go and you read that walkthrough and actually the screenshots, it just gives you this very dark gothic atmosphere, and it looks like a Diablo game, at least in my opinion.
I figured you guys would be able to talk about that the most, considering the fact that you both played it the most.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Nineball. I mean, certainly that you played the 08 and the 10 and the 2010 demo. I mean, those were very, I thought, dark and effectively brooding and gothic.
Yeah, the 2008 especially is just like, I guess just trying to take something positive out of this whole big August 1st press release, since the majority of the reaction to everything else, like the auction house, the online only, the removal of skills, has gotten a lot of people, thinking negatively on it, at least trying to focus on some of the, the positive aspects that, haven't really been talked about at all.
People get caught up in the tornado of information, and then they forget previous information that was told that this is still a Diablo game. It's still going to feel like a Diablo game.
Yeah, I think that pretty much everybody is going to be happy with all of the major features. I mean, you might quibble about the features, but the atmosphere, the quests, the mood, the art direction, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it just feels really fun. It looks really good, and you'll enjoy the quests. I mean, we obviously know that the narration, the voice acting is really top notch, and all the animations and the visuals. Fans tend to obsess over things like skill points and trait removals and all this kind of stuff, runestones, respecs.
Yeah, and it just makes sense. It's like you're gonna talk about controversial topics more than you are, the small little nuances that help make it, feel like the older games in the series. Especially, there's so many tie-ins to the original Diablo. Well, especially considering it's all taking place in Tristram, but bringing back Adria, the Skeleton King. We were talking about the little flashback with Lazarus. Having to go back down through all the bowels of the cathedral and such, just like in the original D1. I'm just wondering if we're going to have any holdovers or little homages to Diablo 2 at any point, because it seems like they're kind of just focusing on things that they can draw from the original.
I think maybe that's because we're in Tristram in Act 1, and we'll get to more Diablo. We weren't really in Tristram very much in Diablo 2. You just mentioned, you visited it briefly.
Yeah, save Cain to get out of there. That was really it.
Of course, we're saving Cain again. You could say that's an homage to Diablo 2, I guess, if you wanted to push your luck. And speaking of the things that fans obsess over, and to the detriment of our greater comprehension of the game, how about them skills, huh? So as we know about the skills, you now only get 6 max, and you get 2 skill. You can choose from all of your skills. You can choose 2 of them at level 1, and you get a 3rd at 6, and a 4th at 12, and a 5th at 18, and your final at 24 is when you have 6 skills available. However, you don't get the skills on tiers. You get a new skill almost every level until about 29 or 30. You have like 24 skills, and the last one comes in around level 30. So, for instance, if you were level 6, you could have 3 skills to choose from. You might have like 7 skills at that point. And then at like level 9, at level 10, at level 11, you would get additional skills would become available to you, which you could switch in for one of your current skills that you were using. And so this kind of goes along with the whole free spec system, where you can just instantly change around and switch between them anytime you want to. And obviously the design is really to get you to try all your skills out and switch between them regularly and utilize them to the best of your abilities and by the various circumstances. And what do you guys think about that, Eliminator?
At first, I was kind of upset the fact that they changed the number of skills that you could have from 7 to 6. But when they explained it, saying that they really found that by making you choose only 6 skills, that you really had to sit there and make some tough decisions and actually tailor your class in a certain way, it kind of made a little more sense that they went that route. And I didn't understand how the skills were going to unlock until you just basically said it right now. I just didn't.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yes, you're very informative. Thank you very much.
Level up. Did my description make sense, by the way?
Yes, it actually did. It made a lot of sense.
Okay, good. Okay, carry on.
So it's actually very nice, the fact that they're going to start you off with some skills. You could pick up a few different ones early on, but then they kind of restrict the massive flow of all the other skills. They kind of dole them out so that you have time to experience each skill, and you're getting something new as you're going up through the levels. So the whole skill, like being able to be respected pretty easily, that seems kind of like a natural progression from the way that they were going. I know a lot of people that are they complained about it on the forums, the fact that it just basically, what about all the small little quirky builds and stuff like that you're going to lose out? But you're not losing out on that. You're now even easier time to find those quirky little builds that you want to make. You don't have to start up a brand new character and well, let me try doing this, or let me try doing that. And you might find like this little special build that you find is fun, and you can go with that instead of having to start over.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute. Let's get Nineball's basic thoughts on the skill system first.
Okay.
At first, I was a little disappointed about losing the tab key for the 7th skill. Nobody likes having things taken away from them. So that was I guess a little bit disappointing that they decided to go that route. I can understand why they did it, to try and reinforce the decisions that you're making for your character. But I'm definitely gonna miss that. Only having the 6 skills, not being able to use the tab key. I thought that was actually kind of cool.
And one of the other key points is that you don't have skill points anymore. So as soon as you switch in a skill, it's as good as it's ever going to get at that point. I mean, obviously skills will improve over time with your character level, with your attributes, with your equipment, with your runestones, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no reason to stay with a skill. You haven't put 5 points into it or anything like that. So it really is free switching around. And like Eliminator said, that gives you a chance to experiment with every possible option. But maybe there's too much experimentation. I mean, you don't have any reason like to be loyal to a skill. You know, you can use it for 10
Runes?
seconds, and if you don't like it, you'll switch. But
Or-
you can take the runes out whenever you want as well, at least early on.
True. Well, unless they go with this new, it locks the rune into a certain skill. Then you'll have to take it out and pay for it to be unaligned again if they do that.
I think it'll be interesting to see how this new system works out. Breaking away from skill points, because skill points have been something that games have used for a very, 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 very long time. So it'll be interesting at least to see how a new system is going to work out. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing in terms of that. I've just so many games that have used skill points in the past, and without having a respec system, you can just screw yourself over, and you've wasted 10, 12 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, we're not going to really know how good it is until we all get our hands on it and play with it for a little while. And it might turn out like all of the games that Blizzard comes out with. You sit there and you play with it for a while, and you're like, this feels right now. I mean, and you try to go back to an old game like Torchlight 2 and put points into things again. You're like, I don't know, it just feels old.
Sometimes old is good, though.
Old and complicated can be a nice change of pace, like the Path of Exile. From the talk of those skills and everything like that, mind blowing.
Yeah, well, that whole thing with the skills and the branching out and the tree, and I'm just picturing like a spider web, going and branching out from there while I was listening to that podcast. That actual level of complication is something that actually kind of draws my interest to it, because I enjoy things like that.
Yeah, well, we're the old school, we're not the new players that they're trying to make everything so simple for. I kind of like a character to have something of an identity and a purpose. I mean, you build them to do X and Y, and they can do X and Y. And you kind of find the strengths and weaknesses of your build, and you find ways to work around levels. And some levels are really easy for you, and some levels are really difficult. And I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm just, clinging to the past here, but I just like the idea of a character who can do some things and not do other things, and I find ways to make that work in the game. And it seems like in Diablo 3, the whole point with the free specs is that you can just instantly change, and maybe they said there might be some limits later in the game. You couldn't switch unless you were in town or something like that. But it just seems like you're not going to have any sense of, this is my fire sorceress. You're just going to have a wizard who does everything whenever it's needed and switches around constantly. And maybe it's so switchable that you won't have any sense of, this is my character and here's what she does and here's why I like her.
What people look for is something that differentiates them from other people. You want to have a unique individual in the world. And that's one thing that I actually hope that they do implement, that rune system, which I think would be, really nice, that if the rune itself does save to that skill, to where once you socket the rune into Magic Missile, it can only ever be used to Magic Missile. That will give you kind of the mechanic that you're looking for, that will more set you to the specific skills that you want, especially if they make the higher level, runes, like the level 6, level 7 runes, rare. You'll only come across them every once in a while, and it's like, well, I'm going to save all the level 7 Crimson runes that I get to put into Arcane Orb. All the level 7 Alabaster runes I get are going to go into Magic Missile, and you're going to focus on those two skills, and you're going to constantly be cycling those runes into those skills until you get good, affixes or bonuses from them that you want. That will definitely play into actually having an identity to your character and making you have to choose specifically what skills it is that you're going to want to use. I think also in one of the other podcasts, Flux, you had mentioned PV. I think it was like the difference between characters and your gearing, where even after they implemented respecs in Diablo 2, you can't just go from a Hammerdin to a Zealadin. You're completely re-gearing your character. So it's one of those things where if you're choosing to focus on different skills and such, you might be having to completely change all your gear options. That might be enough of a hassle to actually make somebody want to level up a whole new character of the same class. Whereas I want a trap-based demon hunter that has all this gear specialized for that, and then this demon hunter I'm going to focus more on the range play.
No, I think he's right. The fact that we don't know necessarily how much gear will affect it, so there might be still some, identity in that aspect of it, and the fact that I like I said before, I really like the fact that you can, the idea, I should say, because it hasn't been implemented, that runes will attune to the skill, and then to have it be something different, you'll have to go back to town and unattune it so that you can use it with another skill that would kind of reinforce that this is what I am, at least out here. I'm not Mr. I could do everything and switch my runes into everything and go about it that way. But I mean, like Bastiak said, you're going to get those early level runes like coin drops, basically. They're just going to be everywhere. You're not going to feel worried about plopping them in. They'll be so prevalent that you won't really be afraid to just plop them into any skill. So at least you'll be able to figure out which skills are nice and which runes you like in each skill, and then you can kind of tailor your character around that when you go into the next difficulty, nightmare, or whatever they want to call it now.
Yeah, and that really is going to be like the biggest thing as far as being able to identify your character. And I think that's going to be one of those things that's going to make or break this new skill system and free respecs, is if there's actually any decision process in the skills itself. Because I like Flux was saying earlier, I do like the idea of being able to do some things and not do others. Like when you go into a situation, being able to just change all of your skills completely on the fly to be able to, fight this one pack of mobs and then change it again. Oh, I'm about to go into Duriel's room, so I have to completely, redo all of my skills so that way I can actually fight him, because nothing that I'm using right now is going to be of any use against him. Actually having to make some tough decisions when you're making your character is, just going to be one of those things that will make or break it.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're setting this up so you can very easily change around early on. You won't have skill runes that are doing anything really special, and you won't have equipment that's really specialized. But then later on in the game, we will get more set in our ways, and you'll build your character to do certain things and not other things via the items essentially. And possibly also via the traits, which are now called passive skills.
Passives,
I don't know why they don't call them traits. It seems like an easier term, but
it is something that the majority of the community, at least those that follow it, already knew that they were traits. Didn't really make sense to change the name of it.
Yeah, and they're mostly the same now. You just don't get to use as many of them, and they have a new name. And it sounds just like regular skills. You have to specify, no, these are passive skills. That's a different system. Anyway. But one of the things you just mentioned, Nineball, was on my concern list here. My second point was that what is going to keep us from just changing our character builds constantly for the situation? I mean, you mentioned like going into Duriel's room, but that kind of concept. I mean, we all ended up doing. There's obviously areas in Diablo 2 that people ran the same levels 1,000 times. The Secret Cow level or the Bloody Foothills or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there were certain skills that were fantastically useful for those areas. Or, anywhere in the game. I mean, like if you went to, the Flayer Jungle or something. I mean, you went there with multi-shot, it was just a jackpot. You couldn't kill them fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think a perfect example for that one is the Necromancer, Corpse Explosion. It'll help you clear through every single thing in the game. As soon as you get to the boss, it does jack nothing.
And my worry is that with free specs, we would all, just use Diablo 2 terms. I mean, everybody is going to have multi-shot on their Boazon in the Flayer Jungle, and then everybody's going to switch to Guided Arrow when they get to Mephisto, and then everybody's going to switch to Fire Arrow for some part where the monsters are physical immune. Mm-hmm. It seemed like every wizard and every necroman and every barbarian and every other skill in Diablo 3, this is like, okay, this area everybody uses skill X and skill Y because of the monster variety in it. And I was wondering how they were going to avoid that happening, where people would just be constantly remaking their characters to completely exploit whichever skills are the most powerful on each area.
Well, I think that some of the skills also will kind of be overlapping in utility and use, so that you'll be able to. So you don't have to necessarily always have multi-shot. Maybe you can have strafe or whatever the heck they said. The other one is or rain of arrows. You'll have options, choices, to not have to take the same spell as everyone else. But I mean, I'm pretty sure what's going to end up happening though is practically everyone's going to have a single target spell, a multi-target spell, a crowd control spell, a movement spell. It's going to work out kind of like that.
Well, everybody smart will have that at least.
Well, yes, everybody who's smart will have that. Or if you want to try to do the crazy builds like some people want, and you just do these wacky little builds, you have to understand that, yes, this is what I want, and I'm willing to deal with the negatives of it.
I am going to get nothing but Ray of Frost, Disintegrate, and Electrocute. I am just going to be a turret that sits there and spins.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that if you really wanted to. Like they said, Jay Wilson said that you can do the blade, Spectral Blade build, but it's definitely not going to be the most powerful build that a wizard could be. but you can go ahead and do that if you want.
Yeah, that one, the battle mage, as he called it, was actually, pretty interesting. Reading how he set it up, and all the different, also the little previews of some of the rune effects on the wizard skills is also pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually made a battle mage page in the wiki like a year ago because of the early skills. Well, probably 2 or 3 years ago actually, but just because they'd listed a few skills, the armor skills, and there was a couple of early traits that gave you like bonuses to your weapon damage based on your skill damage, that kind of stuff. I think those are all gone now, but I'll have to update that page with the new stuff, with specifics from Jay Wilson's presentation at the media event.
It's been 12 days now and you haven't updated?
Yeah, I'm slacking off. That was definitely the most important update was the Battle Mage page, which is
of course
linked from nowhere. So it sounds like none of us are too horribly concerned with the lack of character diversity that Free Specs is going to create. We just listed a whole bunch of reasons why we think that over time there will be more character specialization and variety, and everybody won't be switching to, this is the best skill in this current patch, so everybody's going to use it nonstop. We think there'll be more variety still.
I mean, that's our hope, though, too.
That's what we're hoping. Yeah, it's like if they turn around and not do that, and all of your runes are just interchangeable between everything, and there's really no decision between it, I think that's going to be, at least for me, is going to be very tedious.
Counterpoint: 10 character limit per account.
That sucks. I'm sorry, that sucks.
I mean, if that's not, that's 2 of each. That's 1 PVM and one PvP of each. That's 1 hardcore and 1 softcore of each. I mean, that seems.
I don't know.
That seems like a design based upon you will just respec every character forever and never create multiple ones.
Yeah.
Which counters what we've been saying for the last 20 minutes in our hope anyway.
Exactly.
I really hope they increase that, because of the fact that, even if you wanted to do 1 of each class and each gender, just in non-hardcore, that will take up all those spots.
And not even counting dueling specialized characters, etc. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can envision doing 10 wizards, without a whole lot of problems. A couple of different builds of each kind, hardcore, softcore, a couple for PvP, and I guess I'm done.
This is where Bobby's eyes light up.
Well, for $5, we'll sell you 5 more character slots.
Exactly. Bobby's eyes.
That was everyone's first thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I hopefully don't really see them doing that, because they haven't done it for World of Warcraft yet, because they're, you only have enough slots for 1 of every single class, and so you can't, do pick the male or female versions of every single one. That one is, pretty limiting for some characters, even though I only really play like 2 characters. I have everything else filled up for different specialized tasks for like crafting and things like that. And people have been for years asking for more slots, and they've never budged. And in that time, they added in race change, faction change, server transfers, sparkle ponies, and all that, but they still have not gone in and opened up the character slots. So people have been asking for it the whole time. I hope that with like Diablo 3 that they increase it to more than that, and don't nickel and dime us on that respect, like, as I think like Cryptic is really, really bad about that. They give you, like, for a normal user in a game that you just paid like $40 for, they give you like 2 character slots. Go have fun. Oh, if you want more, you got to pay us.
One thing that about WoW, though, is the fact that you had other servers you could just go to, and you'd have instantly 8 more slots, or I think it's 10 more slots now, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, now in Diablo you don't have that option. You got what you start with. You have 10. That's it. At least as far as they're concerned right now.
You can dual spec WoW characters, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically that gives you double the slots if you're going to PvP or something. I mean, roughly speaking.
Kind of, but you still come into the same factor where you need different gear.
Yeah, you can't dual spec in D2 at all, and D3 at all. So that's even worse.
Yeah, because I mean, like in World of Warcraft with that, it's like I mainly raid, and occasionally, like once a week, we have like a guild PvP thing that we go through and do, and I have to fill 2 different roles inside of the raid depending upon the boss, and then we PvP in the middle of it. So I'm respecing like 4 times a week just to do those 2 activities.
Does that cost money? No.
It costs gold in the game. Yeah.
I was gonna say Bobby's eyes twinkling every time. No, I guess not completely.
No Bobby bucks for that.
Okay, guys, I think we've covered the skills and the quest stuff pretty thoroughly. Any final thoughts?
I just want to say that, as much as the negative stuff that have come out, I think there's still a lot of things to be positive about for the game.
You haven't canceled all your pre-orders yet?
I haven't canceled my pre-orders yet, even though I haven't even made pre-orders yet because I'm waiting for the collector's edition.
Yep, same here.
Okay, guys, thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
Moo.
Moo.
Moo. Moo.